price of food is a matter of food security and it's a matter of national security. And we need to really think about the bigger picture here.
Welcome back to Closer Look on this Thursday night with Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media. What?
That's pretty dramatic intro.
Shaking it up a little bit.
We don't know what else to say.
Derek Turner, also in the room. You can't see him, but that's no surprise.
You still can't see him. That's the way it's going to be.
I don't think we're ever going to show him.
No, that's going to be the running joke.
It's just going to be...
I'm waiting for someone to write us and say, please show me Derek.
Well, we had one person say that.
When?
That's what I said yesterday. I got that email.
Oh, yeah, that's
that
right.
We're always on screen talking about Derek, and they never see Derek.
I don't remember. I don't remember anything. Yeah, thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
That's the second time I mentioned Derek's mom on the show.
I know. That's good humor.
That's
I
right.
still think maybe Derek should be sitting there. Okay, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Welcome to the program. Yesterday, Jack Howan from the Trillium was here. We were talking about doctors and money. We're going to kind of continue that trend this evening, talking money.
Yeah, we're talking money. We're talking food prices.
Yes.
Just back to the doctor billing real quick. It was interesting to see people's reaction to that story, comments. Mm-hmm. People automatically assuming that these are all doctors just waiting at the trough to rip everybody off.
And that's not the case.
That's not the case at all. And of course, I don't think we need to say it, but whoever's made these claims, and we don't know all the details behind them, it's a small minority of doctors.
Of course.
Obviously, there's going to be a whole bunch of doctors out there who are billing a lot less than they're probably worth.
And dollars to donuts.
Yeah.
I still think donuts. I still think your point about the antiquated technology is a valid one.
Oh, 100%. It's
1980s tech.
It's crazy, right? I mean, how do you even? We need to do like a documentary about like a doctor's office and how they file this stuff. If you're a doctor, I'd say it again. Give us a call and or send us an email so we can figure out how we do this. But it is crazy.
All right, let's get to food prices.
Yeah, so
a new report.
New report out. It's sort of a group of different university professors, experts talk about the rising cost, the cost of food for the coming year, right? And they've been doing this for almost 2 decades, and it's a very well done report, and it's really detailed. And of course, they're reporting what we all expected, which is that the food prices in your grocery store are still going to go higher and higher next year. Inflation, I think, between 4% and 6% next year, especially the cost of meat, which we all know from walking down the meat aisle. So we're gonna kind of dive into this report tonight, talk a little bit more about what's driving these prices. I don't think people really understand all the factors that go into why our prices are so high.
Yeah,
whether there's any relief in sight, and for me, it's the question of gouging too. I mean, fair or not, it's what a lot of people think is that they're being gouged by somebody, right? When we saw with the bread
price fixing,
but I mean that we did a whole episode on that. If you missed that, we need to check that one out. I'll put the link in the story because it was a great example of what does happen among food producers. So that's kind of like I feel like it's kind of in the shadows that's kind of lingering over this whole thing, is that people don't trust what's happening at the grocery store either. And the more they see, a cut of beef and the price it is right now, the more they believe that stuff. So we're going to sit down with the University of Guelph professor who's part of this report and dive in.
We could all use a little relief on our grocery bills, but don't expect to see that anytime soon. The latest food price report produced by several Canadian universities is projecting that an average family of 4 will pay an estimated $995 more for food in 2026 than this year because of issues like trade and climate change. Here to talk about the report is Professor Sadaf Molay, the Arl Chair in the Business of Food at the University of Guelph. Professor, thanks so much for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, before we get into some of the details, can you tell us about the report, who's involved in putting it together, and where did you pull the data from?
So the report is basically a collaboration between researchers and colleagues across Canada. So there's not one university that's really working on it. It's a collaboration between different colleagues. And then we've got a forecast team that does most of the modeling for us. And we get data from the CPI data, so the price index data. And then we have some data from more environmental factors, some economic variables, some sector-related factors that would all feed into this model. And then it will give us an estimation of how the prices are going to be changing in the upcoming year. And this is the 16th edition. So it's been doing this estimation for the past 16 years. And so far it has been doing it pretty good.
All right, terrific. Thanks for that explanation. Okay, the report is projecting a 4 to 6% inflation rate for food next year, which is higher than the inflation rate on food that we've seen this year. What specific items are jumping the most in price?
So it is estimated that the food price is going to increase between 4 to 6%. And then we've got different numbers across different categories. The meat category is the one that we're going to be seeing most of the changes in, which is a sort of expected, especially with beef. We've been seeing this price increase in beef for the past year. It's going to continue in 2026 in the meat category. Chicken prices are also anticipated to increase because of the disruptions that we are seeing in the production of chicken. But then there are certain categories such as dairy and eggs, and then fruits that we are expecting more modest increases in those categories.
Yeah, the meat prices are shocking. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this a billion times, right, Professor? Just going down the meat aisle at the grocery store, just how much the chicken has gone up in the last couple of years, and beef. The loaded question I think we're going to ask multiple times today is why? Well, let's say beef, for example. What's driving that price increase?
There are different factors that are driving this price increase for beef specifically and for other categories of food. We've got some macro level variables. For example, we're thinking about climate change, geopolitical risk, energy costs, just inflation as a whole, the trade environment, some of the tariffs that we've been seeing, and then also the currency, Canadian dollar, how it has been performing. And then we've got some factors that are related to the sector. So for example, the retail food environment, just some factors related to labor and workforce, things about just production as a whole, some of the policies that we are seeing, and then also some consumer trends and how they are making their food choices. So these are all some of the different things that are impacting. For beef specifically, it's a matter of importing food and then the relationships that we have with other places. All of that together impacts the prices of beef and then also other options.
Yeah, let's talk about relationships. How much of this is tariff related?
So for the past year and for in 2026, some of this has been because of the trade disputes or just the trade environment as a whole. Right now, with the rollback of some of the tariffs on food, some of the food products, and also the removal of counter tariffs, we are going to be seeing maybe some modest changes in prices. But the point is that tariffs are just a part of this equation that resulted in prices being increased. But then all of those changes, they impacted the supply chain. It impacted producers, the packaging. It impacted some of the other, for example, how popular Canadian products are, importing, exporting, all of that. So when the tariffs are removed, we cannot expect to see an immediate release in food prices. So that will take some time. And we really have to see how that pans out over the next year, because it really depends on how things might change.
Professor, we recently had, I think it was a gentleman from the Canadian Federation of Independent Grocers, and I remember he used the term to describe, he said, we're just in a perfect storm right now of all the things that could be going wrong to help lead to all the increases in prices we're seeing at the grocery store. Is that the way you would describe it too?
So whenever something like this happens, it could be it's a turning point moment. You could take advantage of it to help us improve, or we can. It would be something that would create all the situations it will be very challenging. So at this point, we do have this opportunity as a nation, as an economy, to strengthen the economy, make it more resilient by making sure that we are really focusing on the infrastructure and the resources that we have available in Canada, and also building those other relationships with other countries and other places. And that will make us be more resilient and then be more ready if something else happens again, some of those other disruptions. So I think that's how I would frame it, that it's really up to us to see how we can use this situation to advantage us.
That's a great point. Professor, is there a specific example that helps our listeners understand what one of those things could be that we could do?
So for example, when we're thinking about the supply chain of a certain product, for example, there are a lot of products that are produced in Canada and then they go to the States to get packaged and then they come back and then they're sold to the Canadian producers. If we try to invest and try to focus on bringing that piece of the supply chain, which is the packaging, and we do have the capacity for that, in Canada, that means that reliance on the cross-border activity is going to reduce. So then if something happens or if there are any changes in regulations or if there are any changes in policies, we are dependent on ourselves. And then also this creates an opportunity to maybe export that product someplace else. So the stronger that we are in terms of what we're doing in Canada and then building that relationships outside, it is going to make us more ready and resilient for any future disruptions.
I appreciate that. I do want to shift the conversation to gouging, because whether fair or not, there's a lot of Canadians out there who do feel that there's some gouging going on here too, whether it's the grocers, whether it's the companies that are producing some of this food. What do you say to the people who just say, the problem here is I'm being gouged?
So when we're thinking about the retailers and the grocers, in Canada, there are 4 major companies that own most of the market share. And that means because there's not enough competition, whatever decisions that they make in terms of pricing or in terms of just like inventory and how they would like to go about providing options for consumers, it's really up to them. And when there's no competition, then they make the decision it's going to impact the consumers. And this is something that it needs more of a policy level support and it also response. And that's something that it is going to put pressure on the consumers. But one point that I want to highlight related to this and in general is that when we're thinking about food prices, it's about price, but it's mostly about affordability. And affordability is relevant to people's income and relevant to people's budget. And income and budget, it depends on factors that are not related to food, for example, housing or other things. So, and then research shows that, or just evidence shows that when budgets are constrained or where there's a limitation on your budget, food budgets are the ones that get squeezed really fast. And people tend to go for maybe not nutritious or healthy options or whatnot. So we need to be mindful of the fact that this is more than conversation about food. When we're thinking about food price and food security, it's more of a national security and all the other elements that would feed into the whole conversation.
So, Professor, what's your practical advice to shoppers who are going to listen or watch this podcast and feel even more nervous about their grocery bill than they did already?
Yeah. So the thing is that we are going to be seeing price increases, but there are certain maybe tips or recommendations for consumers to be able to maybe navigate their purchasing and their food decisions during this time. So, for example, planning ahead of time and then buying in bulk. We do see this trend of people really wanting to go to more discount stores or going for store brands rather than the other brands, which are usually more affordable. So these are some of the ways. And then we have some more strategic decision making in terms of what you are eating. So in terms of in terms of protein sources, beef is expensive, chicken is expensive. So the price of egg it's more on the modest side increase. So maybe go for that. Legumes and pulses, those are some good plant-based sources of protein that could be added to a meal and they provide you with nutrition. And then they are also more affordable, thinking about more frozen goods or canned ones that are more affordable. They have longer shelf life. So trying to think about planning and then also learning more about food and meal prepping to make sure that you are able to make some of those food decisions in spite of the prices being so high.
It's a great point. I appreciate you saying that, Professor, because I don't want to blame the consumers, But I also want to. I do feel like that my grandmother's era is gone. My grandma would be looking at the coupons, looking at the flyers, prepping meals weeks in advance, and that does make a difference. Do we need to get back to that? Is some of it on us? I guess is my question.
So the thing is that because it's a system, we don't want the responsibility to be on the consumer, because there's so many ways that we can navigate the situation from a more systematic point of view. But from the consumer side, those are some of the ways that you can at least help yourself and your family, and to make sure that you are getting food that is good for you and good for your family, and doing that meal prepping, going for sales items, coupons, maybe some, for example, loyalty programs where we get points and they can use them for something else. All of these are ways that it could help consumers probably. But then it's a matter of time as well. At this modern age, a lot of people will not have the time to really put into cooking a meal or doing things like that. So it's all about the balance and the trade-off, and that might require more effort by the consumers. But then there is also things that can be done from the consumer side.
Professor, the Canada Grocery Code is supposed to launch in January. Can you tell us exactly what it is, and will it help to bring prices down?
So the Grocery Code of Conduct, that's actually going to help create more transparency. And the intention behind it is exactly that, because when you have only a limited number of actors in an environment, when you have a limited number of companies owning most of the market share in the retail food environment, then, as I said, they make the decisions, and there's not much that could be done. But with this new code of conduct, then there have to be more transparent between around some of the decisions that they have to make, and then that will impact prices as well. And hopefully, it will be something that will benefit the consumers and bring those prices down, or at least control them.
Just a couple more questions. I know you have a tight timeline. Thanks, Professor. I know we've flicked at it, but in terms of climate change, this is an issue that we've talked about. It's been in the news for so long, something we're paying attention to, but I feel like we're paying attention to it less than we used to. How much is that impacting food prices, and what do we need to be paying attention to?
That's actually one of the factors that's significantly impacting prices of food, because food starts with production. A lot of it starts with agriculture. And so you need land, you need water. And because of the changes that we are seeing in climates and some weather patterns that we're seeing, the production of food is being impacted when there are droughts, when there are wildfires, or when, for example, the seasons in terms of like how long they are changes, the temperatures change. It impacts crops, it impacts farmers' lives, it impacts this whole array of things that will result in creating those bottlenecks or disruptions in the supply chain, which will eventually mean that the margins are going to be much lower for the producers, and then it will reflect in the price point that the consumer has to pay for.
I appreciate that, Professor. Here's the big problem, is the way I see it. It's hard to imagine having this conversation with you today that we're suddenly going to see in a couple of years that food prices are going to plummet. That all of a sudden it's going to be way cheaper to go to the grocery store. You're an expert in this. What's the best case scenario, say 5 years from now?
So the best case scenario would be we are seeing, so if the price increases are more in line with inflation, like that is around sort of the numbers that you want to see, at least if they are increasing, because you don't want them to be so much higher than inflation. And then also it's a matter of thinking about creating that sort of resilient space for consumers and also for the economy as a whole to make it stronger, so that we'll be able to produce more and to be able to rely on some Canadian resources and be able to build that relationships. So then then people will have disposable income to spend on food. Again, price is a number. The focus should be on people's affordability and the fact that they are able to afford those price points. So controlling the price and being more transparent in that sense, and thinking about the production and supply chain is important, but also all those other circumstances around income and wages and other things that people might need to spend money on that will impact their ability to put money aside for food. Those are also things that should be taken into consideration.
All right, Professor, before we let you go, anything from the report that we didn't touch on tonight that we should have?
I think we touched on some of the important things. And again, it's just around the fact that price, food is a matter of food security and it's a matter of national security. And we need to really think about the bigger picture here.
All right. Very well said. There's Professor Sadaf Molei from the University of Guelph. Professor, we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're right about walking up and down the meat aisles. I'm going to give up meat. It's so expensive.
Well, that'd probably be healthier for us if we did, right? We more chickpeas.
I'm not giving up chickpeas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I have seconds of chickpeas? Do I look like I eat chickpeas?
I wish we did have a massive amount of people that would email us angry emails, because I don't want to blame all consumers.
No.
But there is a little bit that's on you too. It's
For
on
sure
you to figure out, like, you know, if you don't know that there's certain items that you know are always going to be cheaper at one grocery store to another one. Now, granted, not everyone can always get to every grocery store. They might not have a vehicle.
Of course.
Those things all come into play. But there is an element that you can reduce. You can be careful about the cost that you pay for groceries. Now, I'm not saying that's the only fix, but that's got to be part of it. Some of it's on you.
It's a great suggestion. And here's an example. And I'm not going to name store names, because then that would certainly spawn hate mail, and we don't want that. But if the same thing at one store, the identical thing at one store is 75 cents, 85, $1 cheaper than store B, why are people still going to store B? I don't get it.
I think some of it is they're just not paying attention and they don't understand how prices work. That's part of it.
Yeah.
And some people, they just don't have the mobility issues to get to.
And I also think that some people, there's a status thing.
Yeah. Part of it is a status thing. But
sure.
I'm not lying. I remember both my grandmothers going through the flyers.
Oh my God, yeah.
Organizing what they do. And there is some element of that. And it's funny because we were just talking on a news meeting the other day about student financing and about how it's the economy is impacting, say, university students, right? Somebody mentioned, how much are they spending on Starbucks? And I'm thinking, well, that'll be the first rule is if you want to save a bit of money, stop buying an $8 latte.
No kidding.
But like I said, if we had a whole bunch of listeners, we had all kinds of angry emails. But part of this will be our message in this podcast from now on. Part of figuring out the problems in life is figuring it out yourself. There you go.
Oh,
this podcast brought to you by the 1950s.
That's Michael Friscolanti, 298 Queen Street. Okay, no, you know what? You're right. We got to own some of that. We all do, for sure.
Well, if you're going to buy, I won't say anymore. I'm done.
All right. You sure?
Yep.
All right.
I've said enough.
We'll say more tomorrow. What do you say? Closer look at villagemedia.ca. We'd love to hear from you. And closerlookpodcast.ca. And of course, you can find us all over social media and across the Village Media Network. We appreciate your time tonight. As always, this evening's show produced by Derek Turner. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow night at 7 right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.